WorldAware's annual global forecast report looks at various regions around the world as well as categories including health, environment, terrorism, kidnapping, and transportation. The 2019 report is compiled by expert intelligence analysts across the globe. I'm Tarryn Christians, intelligence analyst for the Americas region, and will be sharing highlights from the Americas section of the 2019 global forecast. In Venezuela, a weakened opposition and the limited options for foreign governments to force his removal have allowed Maduro to consolidate power. More than 3 million Venezuelans have fled the country's deteriorating political and economic conditions. In the absence of political change, the migration crisis will likely worsen. The nationwide protests in 2017 at first appeared to have debilitated President Maduro. However, most key members of his government maintained their support for him, and some high-profile officials who broke with the administration did not ignite a larger internal split. Authorities have arrested dozens of active and retired military members in the past 2 years, accusing them of rebellion. Such actions reaffirm the upper hand that intelligence services have over the armed forces and make similar attempts in the future much more difficult. Government repression has been more severe and more targeted towards the political parties that led the 2017 protests, which has created major divisions among those critics of the government. Several foreign governments, including the US, Canada, and EU members, have enforced financial and travel sanctions on individuals and entities tied to the government. However, these have yielded few results so far. A lack of changes in Venezuela's political situation could force the US to consider escalating its sanctions. The failure to resolve the crisis in Venezuela has also led to frequent talk of military intervention in the country, due primarily to the fact that regional countries strongly oppose this approach. Such action is currently implausible and highly unlikely. As an alternative solution, international leaders, including the UN Human Rights Council, are urging the Venezuelan government to accept humanitarian assistance to alleviate the effects of the severe economic situation. However, President Maduro has so far rejected major international aid, stating that foreign governments and news organizations are exaggerating the migrant crisis as part of a campaign to overthrow his government. There are at least 3 million Venezuelan migrants around the globe, 2 million of whom left the country since 2015. A large majority of migrants have resettled in Latin America and the Caribbean, especially in Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Argentina, and Chile, which together host more than 1.9 million Venezuelan migrants. The continued flow of migrants has caused some governments to constrain Venezuelans' ability to apply for legal status. As the crisis is expected to worsen, these controls are likely to tighten. Caribbean islands, including Curacao and Trinidad and Tobago, have responded harshly to the migrants, arresting and deporting hundreds of migrants. Violent attacks against migrants have occurred in areas most impacted by the crisis, such as Roraima State in Brazil and Cúcuta in Colombia, though authorities have been able to prevent more widespread violence. Colombia remains the worst affected country. Colombian President Iván Duque claims Colombia is spending an estimated $1.5 billion annually to host the migrants. With migrant inflows unlikely to abate, the Colombian government estimates 3 million more Venezuelan migrants will be in Colombia by 2021. The most affected countries in Latin America will likely increasingly restrict access to their territories while requesting more international assistance to respond to the situation and reduce the associated threat of social instability. Foreign governments will look to broaden economic and political sanctions against Maduro's regime to force a democratization process, but the strategy is unlikely to succeed. The financial burden of hosting refugees will increase as the number of refugees increases. Regional leaders may enforce stricter border controls to curb the flow of migrants, possibly resulting in some disruptions to cross-border shipments. Foreign governments will likely continue to respond to the crisis by imposing financial sanctions on Venezuela. However, any escalation of sanctions that affect ordinary civilians, which may further contribute to the exodus, are less likely to be implemented. The migrant influx is unlikely to drastically alter the security dynamics in major urban centers in these countries. While migrants may increasingly move to larger cities and capitals in search of economic opportunities, the elevated threats of domestic civil unrest associated with migrants are likely to remain concentrated in less developed border towns. President Nicolas Maduro is likely to remain in power through 2019, but his unwillingness to negotiate with opposition leaders or make meaningful economic and political reforms may fuel greater unrest in Venezuela. Thank you for learning more about the Americas topic in the 2019 Global Forecast. Tweet your questions using the hashtag GlobalForecast2019, and I will respond to your questions relating to Venezuela. For more information about the 2019 Global Forecast Report and to download an executive summary and security assessment rating maps, visit the WorldAware website.